For centuries, England has stood as a beacon of opportunity and dreams, attracting people from every corner of the world. Its storied past, rich culture, and economic prospects have made it a top destination for those seeking a fresh start. Whether drawn by the promise of a better life, educational opportunities, or the allure of the English language, millions have come to the UK in hopes of a brighter future. However, this trend has started to shift, and what was once a haven for immigrants is now seen as something unprecedented: a mass exodus. This exodus isn't just a small-scale movement, it's a growing trend of immigrants leaving the UK at record rates. People are packing their bags and heading back to their home countries or seeking better opportunities elsewhere, and this is happening right before our eyes. The reasons behind this migration trend are complex and multifaceted, but understanding the underlying factors is essential. Let's dive deeper into the real reasons why immigrants are choosing to leave the UK and what it means for the future of the country. 1. The cost of living, a heavy burden. Let's start with one of the most critical and immediate concerns for people living in the UK: the cost of living. Over the past few years, the price of everyday essentials has surged, making survival increasingly difficult for many. This is especially true for immigrants who may have arrived with limited resources or in search of better-paying jobs. Unfortunately, the reality has not met their expectations, and the dream of building a stable life in the UK is slipping away. One of the most pressing issues is housing. The cost of housing in the UK has risen sharply, particularly in major cities like London, Birmingham, and Manchester. The average house price in the UK has crossed £290,000, which is already out of reach for many, but in London, the situation is even worse. The average price for a home in London is over £500,000, which means that for many immigrants, the dream of owning a home is unattainable. Even if buying isn't an immediate goal, renting is equally difficult. Rent prices in London have reached an average of £2,000 per month, with other cities seeing similar increases. In places like Manchester, Birmingham, and Bristol, rents have surged by 10–15% over the past year alone, making it even harder for families to get by. For immigrants on modest incomes, this financial burden is simply too much to bear. The challenge of covering rent while trying to save or send money back home becomes an overwhelming task. The steep price of housing is a significant push factor driving many immigrants to consider moving to countries with lower living costs or returning to their home countries where life may be more affordable. But housing is not the only problem. The cost of basic necessities has also skyrocketed. Groceries, transportation, and energy bills are all more expensive than ever. For instance, simple items like bread, milk, and eggs have seen price hikes of up to 133%, making them a luxury for families struggling to stretch their paychecks. This issue is further exacerbated by the rising energy bills. The UK has some of the highest energy costs in Europe, and with the price of petrol increasing, commuting to work or running daily errands has become unaffordable for many. It's not just the cost of living that's a problem. It's the way in which these costs seem to spiral out of control with no signs of slowing down. With wages not keeping pace with inflation, many immigrants are left wondering if staying in the UK is worth it. This question has sparked a mass migration as immigrants look for better prospects abroad. 2. Inflation, a burden too heavy to bear. Alongside the rise in the cost of living, the UK is grappling with a growing inflation crisis. Inflation has been climbing at an alarming rate, and it's hitting everyday consumers particularly hard. In the past year alone, grocery prices have surged by a staggering 13.3%. This is particularly problematic for immigrants who work in lower-income jobs where pay increases are not enough to keep up with rising prices. Simple staples like bread, milk, eggs, and vegetables have become luxuries for some families, forcing them to make difficult decisions about what to buy and how to stretch their budgets. But the impact of inflation doesn't end with food prices. Gas and energy bills are also on the rise, making it even harder for families to make ends meet. The UK has some of the highest energy prices in Europe, and this has only been worsened by a global energy crisis. For immigrants who rely on public transportation to get to work, the increase in petrol prices is yet another financial strain. Commuting, taking the children to school, or even running basic errands has become a financial challenge, and this ongoing struggle for survival has caused many immigrants to reconsider their futures in the UK. The situation isn't expected to improve anytime soon, which makes it more difficult for immigrants to build a stable life in the UK. With inflation continuing to outpace wage growth, many are finding it hard to afford even the basics, and for those working in low-wage jobs, the pressure is becoming unbearable. When survival becomes a daily challenge, it's no wonder so many are considering leaving the UK for more affordable destinations. 3. Political climate, a shift in national mood. Another significant factor driving the exodus of immigrants from the UK is the political climate. The political landscape in the UK has shifted dramatically in recent years, and there's been growing hostility towards immigrants in certain parts of society. While the UK has long prided itself on being a multicultural society, there's a growing sense that this ideal is under threat. Immigrants, particularly those from non-European backgrounds, are increasingly feeling unwelcome, and this shift in national mood is having real consequences. The Brexit referendum, which resulted in the UK leaving the European Union, was a significant turning point in this regard. The debate over Brexit fueled a rise in nationalism and anti-immigrant sentiment. In the years since, political discussions around national identity and immigration have become more polarized. Many immigrants, especially those from EU countries, have felt that their contributions to the country are no longer valued, and the growing anti-immigrant rhetoric has left them feeling marginalized. This sense of hostility has been compounded by increasingly stringent immigration policies. The UK government has tightened immigration controls, making it more difficult for long-term residents to renew their visas. In addition, there have been changes to the points-based immigration system, making it more challenging for immigrants to gain permanent residency or citizenship. For many immigrants, this uncertainty about their right to remain in the country is a significant source of stress, and it's prompting them to seek out more welcoming environments. The rise in nationalism, coupled with a more exclusionary political climate, is a key factor driving immigrants to leave the UK. If you're living in a country where you feel unwelcome, where your rights are uncertain, and where your presence is often viewed with suspicion, it's understandable why you might choose to move elsewhere. 4. The impact of COVID-19, a double-edged sword. The COVID-19 pandemic was a game-changer for the entire world, and its effects are still being felt today. In the UK, the pandemic led to massive lockdowns, economic disruptions, and a sharp rise in unemployment. Many immigrants, particularly those working in hospitality, retail, and tourism, were among the hardest hit by these changes. As businesses closed or reduced their operations, the jobs that many immigrants relied on disappeared, and many were left without a steady income. While the UK government introduced furlough schemes to help those affected by the pandemic, these schemes were not always sufficient. Immigrants who were on temporary contracts, in low-wage jobs, or without permanent employment were often left out of the support programs. As a result, many found themselves in dire financial straits with little to no assistance. This financial hardship, combined with the uncertainty of the future, led many immigrants to reconsider their lives in the UK. But the impact of COVID-19 wasn't just economic, it also had a profound mental health toll. The pandemic disrupted lives on a global scale, and for many immigrants, it meant losing jobs, facing isolation, and struggling with anxiety about the future. The constant uncertainty and stress took a toll on mental well-being, and for many, it was the breaking point. The decision to leave the UK and return to their home countries or seek new opportunities elsewhere offered a chance to escape the pressure of the pandemic's aftermath. 5. Education and the dream of a better future. For many immigrants, the hope of providing their children with a better education and a brighter future is a powerful motivator. However, rising tuition fees and the lack of affordable educational opportunities are driving some to reconsider staying in the UK. The UK is home to some of the world's most prestigious universities, but for many immigrants, the cost of education is becoming prohibitive. Tuition fees for international students can be as high as £30,000 per year, and while financial aid is available, it's often insufficient. For families who came to the UK with the hope of providing their children with a world-class education, the rising costs of schooling have been a major disappointment. This has forced some to look for opportunities in other countries where education is more affordable and accessible. But it's not just university fees that are the issue. The overall cost of raising a child in the UK has risen significantly, and for many working-class families, this is becoming a major burden. Childcare costs, in particular, have skyrocketed, making it difficult for parents to work and care for their children at the same time. As a result, many are reconsidering their options and seeking out countries where education is more affordable and the cost of living is lower. Say, a glimmer of hope, new beginnings. Despite the challenges, there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Many immigrants are finding new opportunities in countries with more welcoming policies, better prospects, and lower living costs. Countries like Portugal, Germany, Canada, and Australia are seeing a rise in immigration numbers as they offer better opportunities for economic stability, healthcare, and education. These nations are not only providing a better quality of life but are also rolling out programs that support the integration of immigrants into their societies. For some immigrants, returning to their home countries is not seen as a failure but as a new beginning. In many cases, going back home offers a chance to rebuild and reclaim their dreams, often with the advantage of having acquired valuable skills and experiences during their time in the UK. This sense of optimism and hope is pushing many immigrants to seek new paths and new opportunities. For others, it's about finding a fresh start where they can thrive without constantly battling to survive. Whether it's Canada, Australia, or another country, immigrants are finding places that offer better support systems and more opportunities for upward mobility. It's clear that the global landscape for immigration is changing, and while some are leaving the UK, they're finding new homes elsewhere. So what do you think? Are we witnessing the end of an era for immigration in the UK? Or is it just a temporary setback? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions. And remember, no matter where you go, a new chapter always awaits.